Welcome back to Boilers and Beyond. I'm Jordan Jones. Purdue found a way to win in a battle with Indiana on Friday night, although the Hoosiers put quite the scare into the Mackey Arena crowd. We will discuss that rivalry win as Purdue got its third straight in the series. Take a look ahead to a week where Purdue just needs to take care of business, answer some of your questions, look at the Big Ten race, all that good stuff. It's the heart of the season, so you know what we'll be talking about. It just differs every week with the opponents and all of that. So if you don't already, be sure to follow the show on Twitter at BoilersBeyond. Come join the conversation. You can always send in questions for the show there on Twitter at BoilersBeyond, or you can email the show, boilersandbeyondpod@gmail.com. And please be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so that you don't miss a thing. Give the show a 5-star review if you like it. If not, let me know. Let me know what you want improved, because this is your show. So Purdue wins 81-76 against Indiana, a game that, Purdue was a pretty heavy favorite, and that's not normally the case in rivalry games like this. I know it has been, for the last several years, Indiana hasn't been the program that it wants to be, but it's still pretty rare that one of the teams is a 13 point favorite at home. And Indiana played well. This turned out to be a really good game. It had the eyes of the college basketball world on it. It was one of those where, by the time I'd left Mackey Arena and driven home and, scrolling through Twitter, because you can't go to sleep after something like that, you see all the national college basketball people talking about it, and Field of 68 does a 40-minute podcast about it, which there's not that much to talk about for just one game, but whatever. A lot of conversation generated from it, and if you ask me, the biggest thing this game was about, the biggest reason that Purdue nearly lost as a double-digit favorite at home for the second time in 3 games, was that Trey Kaufman-Renn was in foul trouble. More than anything, that is what gave Purdue problems here. That's the story of this game. This is not some new phenomenon. We spent a lot of time early on in January. I think I had a segment about it on the show. I know I tweeted about it, about how Purdue cannot afford for Trey Kaufman-Renn to be in foul trouble and missing extended periods of time. Obviously, he's not a guy who you can play 40 minutes, but you can play him 30. You can probably play him 32, and you can give him 2-minute breathers here and there. You can sit him for a full 4-minute stretch, but you can't afford for him to miss the last 6 minutes of the first half. You can't afford for him to sit for a solid period in that second half. He still was able to play 26 minutes in this game, but it's what happened in those 4 to 6 minutes that he couldn't be out there that kept Indiana in it. Plus minus numbers only tell you so much a lot of the times, because there's a lot that goes into them. You have offense-defense substitutions. You have what the other team is doing out there. You have someone who's on the floor when another guy goes on a heater and hits 3 threes in a row, and maybe he didn't do a dang thing to contribute to it. But plus minus in this case is very significant. When Trey Kaufman-Renn was on the floor, Purdue was a plus 21. When Trey Kaufman-Renn wasn't on the floor, Purdue was a minus 16. It's a net of plus 5, and Purdue wins the game because of it. But when you're a plus 21, that tells you exactly the impact that Trey Kaufman-Renn had on the game. He was terrific. He finishes the game 10 of 13 from the field. He makes all 3 free throws. He's 10 of 13 up against Umar Ballo, who, isn't exactly an elite, just one-on-one defender, but he's a massive guy. He's huge. Trey Kaufman-Renn had to work to get a lot of those shots. It wasn't like he was going up against, a mid-major 6'8", 220-pound big guy, and he's just getting to that left shoulder all day. He was having to work. He was having to make tough shots, but he did it. And my wife had looked at me at the under 4 timeout. I think the game was tied or thereabouts. And she said, hey, is Purdue going to win? And I said, if Trey Kaufman-Renn doesn't foul out, then yes, Purdue is going to win. If Trey Kaufman-Renn fouls out, then probably not. He never picked up the 5th foul. That did impact the game. Him being in foul trouble absolutely impacted the game. You look at what Indiana did down the stretch, where there were 2 or 3 times where Trey Galloway just goes right at him in a ball screen switch, and Trey Kaufman-Renn can't do much other than just put his arms up and have Galloway finish over him, which you still have to finish, but it's not like he could be all that aggressive in trying to contest the shot. The fouls that Trey Kaufman-Renn commits are not typically egregious. It's not like he's out there beating someone over the head with a folding chair. It's not like he's out there, really, really pushing people around. It's a couple of moving screens. There was a questionable one in the first half on a rebound. But at some point, it's not a coincidence. At some point, you've got to find a way to limit these, because this is something that Purdue dodged bullets against, frankly, bad teams early on in the season, or in the Big Ten play. I think Minnesota, he had a few fouls on him. Rutgers, he picked up some fouls. Maybe there was another one. I remember it from that early January stretch. Those teams weren't good enough to beat Purdue and make it pay. Indiana is. Those screens were moving. They were. Now, you could argue that a lot of screens are moving, because they are, but you got to find a way to not let that happen. Without Trey Kaufman-Renn, Purdue's offense really changes because you don't have the threat of post scoring. Caleb Furst isn't someone you're going to throw the ball to on the block and get you buckets. Raleigh Burgess isn't that guy either. They can do some stuff in slips. They can, if you get the ball on a dump off to Caleb Furst, where he has a layup, he'll hit it. But these aren't guys who you run offense through. Purdue's offense becomes pretty much exclusively perimeter oriented when Trey Kaufman-Renn isn't on the floor, which again is fine. You can do stuff still in ball screens with Braden Smith. You can run off ball motion. You can do a lot of things, but when you don't have that post scoring threat, it really changes the way teams defend you, because teams don't have to, overcompensate on Trey Kaufman-Renn, on Raleigh Burgess, Camden Heide when he's at the 4. He's not a post guy. He does a good job of cutting to the basket, but it really changes things, and it really limits what Purdue can do. Indiana really exposed Purdue's weaknesses and limitations as a rebounding team. And again, we're to the point of the year. I thought it was funny before the game. Matt Painter kind of talked about how it's February. At this point, if you're still not sure what you're being coached to do, and if you're still not really sure about your team, you're probably looking at the wrong things. And this is something we knew about Purdue all season long, is that rebounding is not a huge strength of this team. Purdue has been out-rebounded plenty of times this season. It has found a way to overcome it. It's found a way to not make it matter as much as you might think it would. But that was a huge deal in this game. It was one of those where Indiana came in kind of desperate. Indiana came in really needing this, and Indiana came in motivated. I think a big part of Indiana playing well is the fact that Purdue utterly destroyed them twice last year. That sticks with guys. And while I know, your Miles Rices, your Umar Balos weren't there last year, Bryson Tucker, Cannon Carlisle didn't play, but, Trey Galloway has been there. Mackenzie Mbako was there last year. Luke Goody knows what the game means. These guys for Indiana who played well, they sat through it last year. There are guys from Indiana, Trey Galloway, Luke Goody, Anthony Leal. It matters to these guys. So them coming out and playing inspired and playing well isn't a huge shock. Those guys haven't quit on Mike Woodson yet. And Indiana was really able to get some momentum early on with second chance looks. Umar Ballo is just a big dude, man. He is a really big dude. And you see him not just necessarily pulling down the offensive boards. He had 4 of them. I don't know how the tapbacks factor into that, because it felt like there were, 2 or 3 times where Indiana gets a tap back. I don't know who gets credited with the rebound, and they knock down a 3 or they get a bucket. Indiana only had 16 second chance points, which is the same amount as Purdue, but it felt like those 9 in the first half went a really long way. It's not just Ballo. Indiana has length elsewhere. Mackenzie Mbako is really big for a 3. Malik Renew didn't play as much because he was in foul trouble. He only played 8 minutes, and that was probably for the best for Indiana because it was really able to spread out Purdue, and it was really able to utilize that corner when Purdue would come with a double on Umar Ballo on the block, and he did a really good job at finding that open guy in the corner. That was usually Mbako or Goody, and he did a great job there. That was dynamite for Indiana. Purdue struggled with that. Trey Galloway is a fairly long guy at the 2. I mean, Indiana has size there, and Purdue doesn't. Caleb First only plays 21 minutes in this game, so there's 19 minutes where, I guess I'd have to look specifically, but let's just say that's 19 minutes where you have Camden Heide at the 4. I mean, that's small. That's really small compared to what Indiana's dealing with there. So that was big. That was really big. The pick and roll game was really effective for IU. Of course, I think a lot of that comes with Ballo taking up so much space, Purdue not really being able to risk fouls. Indiana did a really good job. Indiana had a good plan of attack. Up until the last 30 seconds or whatever, Indiana came into that game really well. But I think you give Purdue a lot of credit because the foul trouble thing could have sent this off the rails. Caleb First picked up some fouls. Trey Kaufman-Renn, as we've talked about, had foul trouble. I don't know that anyone else really did, no. Raleigh Burgess gets a technical. That was kind of weird. I still don't really know what happened there. But these are all things that could have sent this one spiraling. Purdue doesn't shoot well. Purdue didn't let it get out of hand, though. There were, Indiana led by 7 or so at one point. Maybe Indiana led by 9. I'm trying to think here. Indiana led by 7 late in the first half. Purdue gets it to the locker room at 4 and ultimately comes back and wins the game. Purdue did a really good job of just kind of sticking to the process. It kept fighting. Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer were huge at creating shots. Braden Smith was just magnificent in the mid-range. He's 11 for 19 inside the arc. He was really good there. Fletcher Lawyer goes 4 for 10, but he hit big shots at big times. He goes for a really quiet 15 points. That and one he had off an inbound. I think IU had made a little run to come back and tie it or take the lead maybe, and Lawyer gets an and one runner off an inbound that was just a huge shot. The guy has an uncanny ability for hitting shots at quietly big times in games. He obviously had the shot at Nebraska his freshman year that was big, that I don't remember if sent it to overtime or it won Purdue the game, but it's not like he's the guy taking the shot at ends of games, but he hits shots at really big moments, if that makes sense. It was one of those where you could feel the nervous energy in Mackey Arena a little bit. The longer Indiana stuck in that game, you can just kind of feel the tension build up. Purdue fans don't like losing to Indiana, and that was a very real possibility. And you could feel that tension building up, but Purdue just kept on chugging. And you got great effort from Jakari Harris, great effort from Camden Heide on the defensive end. Jakari Harris gets you a career-high 9 points. He makes a great defensive play late on Miles Rice. It was funny. I'm at the game. I get ready to leave after, and it was by the time I got home that I started really scrolling through Twitter and seeing folks talking about whether it was a foul or not. And, Robbie Hummel said he thought it was a foul on the broadcast. I sit far away. I sit up towards the top of Mackey Arena. It never crossed my mind that it was a foul in real time. Looking at it now, I don't think it was. I think it was a really well-defended play. But that guy's a dog, man. Jakari Harris is a dog. He is really, really advanced for a freshman on the defensive end. He is getting more and more comfortable on offense. He knocks down free throws. He hits a big three, one of Purdue's 2 threes of the game. Great game for him. Another really good game. Purdue wins this game despite shooting 2 for 13 from 3. Purdue, at one point, Purdue was up around 40% as a three-point shooting team. That's down to 37%. Purdue made 19 threes in that game against Nebraska a couple weeks back. It's played 5 games since then, and it's made 3 or fewer from outside in 4 of those 5 games. Some of this is Purdue taking what the defense gives it. Braden Smith has been awesome in the mid-range recently, with the exception of Ohio State, where I think he was pretty tired. He was pretty worn out. Has gotten to the basket well. He's been great. And that's the defense giving him that shot, kind of taking away the 3, but giving him that shot. Fletcher Lawyer has certainly been getting run off the three-point line a bit, but in those runners, those floaters, the mid-range, he gets to the basket. He's really good at that stuff. What's becoming really obvious is you're seeing sophomore shooting slumps from Camden Heide and Miles Colvin. Camden Heide, 31.9% from 3 on the season. He's 3 for 20 in Big Ten play. That's 15%. Miles Colvin, 30% on the year, 26.5% in Big Ten play. It doesn't mean that everything about their play has been a negative. As I said earlier, Camden Heide's been giving you really good minutes defensively. He is not really a 4. He's able to play it. He has the strength to do it. But, vertically, he can be put in compromising positions sometimes there. It helps that a lot of teams are moving towards this small ball stuff. But he can be put in some tricky spots sometimes. But he's been awesome on the defensive end. It's just not coming together in terms of scoring. With Miles Colvin, again, he's really improved on defense this year. He's a lot better than he was last year, but you see those limitations with him on offense, the lack of ball handling ability, the lack of ability to create with the ball in his hands. He's not a big passer. You're kind of seeing Jakari Harris and CJ Cox play over him right now. And that's going to be something that, matchups are going to dictate. There are going to be games where Purdue needs Miles Colvin. And if he knocks down shots, Purdue will certainly, let him get hot, let him cook, so to speak. But lately, it's been a struggle. And Jakari Harris has been really good. He's 8 for 18 from 3 in Big Ten play. CJ Cox has some real ability to his game. It's going to be interesting to see as we kind of progress into February here what those minutes look like, because those freshmen have been everything you could have asked for this year. There wasn't a reasonable expectation out there that they would be doing more than this. They've been awesome. Purdue moves on at Iowa on Tuesday night. Iowa's not particularly good this year. It's your typical Iowa. They don't turn the ball over on offense. They score really efficiently. Josh Dix, Peyton Sanford can really get going from 3. Owen Freeman's a nice big guy. He's creative. He's not, your dominant Hulk big dude, but he does some really good things for them. They're terrible on defense. They try to turn you over. That's Iowa. They're going to do that, 2/3, 3/4 court pressure, a little bit of trap stuff. But if you can beat it and not have those turnovers in the backcourt, you're going to be fine. They gave up 116 to Wisconsin, 99 to USC, 94 to UCLA, 85 to Michigan. If Purdue operates well on offense, doesn't turn it over, You're going to get good looks from 3 against Iowa. You always do. You can knock those down. You're in good shape. You come home, USC on Friday night. They're all right. They did just beat Michigan State in LA. We'll get to that here soon. Desmond Claude's tough. He's not a huge three-point shooter, but he's a really, really good player, really good guard for them. If Purdue plays fine, it's going to win. It doesn't need to play exuberantly well. I do wonder when the travel really gets to USC and some of these West Coast schools. This is USC's 3rd trip out east in Big Ten play, I want to say. It's been out here. This will be its 3rd trip, although it went to Nebraska for 1 game. That's Galaxy stuff from the schedule makers. This will be its 3rd trip out to actual Big Ten country, to put it mildly. It's just been interesting. It's been interesting to see these Pac-12 teams kind of acclimate to the Big Ten, but it's not like Mackey Arena is something USC basketball is really used to. It's very used to having other fans be more into it than their fans, though. My goodness, I watched them play Michigan. I watched them play Michigan State, and the Let's Go Blue and Go Green, Go White chants were clearly louder than anything USC fans did all day. That has to be an experience for USC players. That can't be great. But this is where you win Big Ten championships. It's not losing these games. As much as you win these conference titles when you go on the road to Illinois and win like Purdue did last year, or trying to think of other big games Purdue played last year. The Big Ten wasn't that good. When Purdue went to the Breslin Center on Martin Luther King Day 2 years ago and won the game at the buzzer, those games help, but it's avoiding these pitfalls. 2 games where Purdue's going to be favored. Ken Pom has Purdue winning by 7 against Iowa, 12 against USC. You've got to come out and do it. That's the key. Everyone's played 10 or 11 games now, so you're really looking at the race here, at the race to the finish. Everyone's got a loss. Michigan State lost at USC on Saturday. It might be an underdog at UCLA on Tuesday. UCLA has been playing some good basketball lately. They kind of been doing it quietly because when they play at home, these games tip off at like 4 a.m. out here. But, they're going to play Michigan State. That's a 10 o'clock Eastern time tip on Tuesday. That's weird. That's really weird. Michigan State has matchups left with two with Michigan. Purdue goes up there. They got to go to Illinois. They got to go to Maryland, who's been playing really well. Michigan State has losses ahead of it. I am curious to see. So much of what kind of happens in the Big Ten and in conference play in general is a team tries something against someone, and then it has success with it. It's like when teams would decide that, they weren't going to try to let Purdue shooters, 2018, I remember, Michigan State lets Isaac Haas score a bunch, and then Wisconsin tries it, and you see more teams try it, and then, Purdue develops a counter to it, and that's just kind of how it goes. USC really made Michigan State try to shoot the ball. If you don't know, Michigan State really doesn't shoot three-pointers. It shoots threes at one of the lowest rates in America. It makes 29% of them. It's not a good three-point shooting team, but USC really sagged off and tried to make Michigan State shoot them. It didn't work for Michigan State. Michigan State got nothing going on offense, scores 64 points and loses. I'm fascinated to see what happens as we move forward there, because none of these guys on Michigan State's team really scare you from deep. But if you let them get in the paint and do some stuff there, yeah, fascinating to watch. You never want to doubt Tom Izzo because he's earned every single benefit of the doubt you could possibly give him. But I have my skepticism about Michigan State being a 17-3, being a 16-4 type team in this league. I don't know how much I'm buying Michigan, but it has a lot of home games remaining. It's not like Chrysler Arena or Chrysler Center, whatever they call it, is that big of a home court advantage. It's a pretty muted environment, but it helps to be at home. They've got a big one next week at Indiana. That's one that kind of is going to determine whether Michigan hangs around in this race or not. I don't know. That's a really big one. They go to Ohio State. It's an interesting, but they have a more favorable schedule than Purdue or Michigan State. And then there is Purdue. Purdue has 5 road trips left: Iowa, Michigan State, Indiana, Illinois. If you go 3-2 there, if you can beat Iowa, probably want to beat Indiana. That's not going to be easy. Split your Michigans and see what happens at Illinois. I'd be shocked if Purdue can go 16-4. I'd be shocked if it didn't at least get a share. I'd be pretty surprised if Purdue didn't win it outright at 16-4. You've got a couple tricky home games. Wisconsin's pretty good. UCLA's pretty good. But if Purdue can just defend Mackey Arena and go 3-2 on the road, I think it's in really good shape to put up another Big Ten title banner. This episode is brought to you by me. Yes, me. When I'm not watching sports, or more accurately, talking about them, I'm talking insurance with the people of Indiana. As an agent with Indiana Farm Bureau Insurance, I want to help you protect what you've worked hard to achieve. From home and auto to life and business insurance, I'm here to help you. Give me a call at 317-846-5861 or email me at jordan.jones@infarmbureau.com, and let's protect you from life's everyday risks. Got some Q&A, specific stuff from the IU game, love talking about it. It was a fun one. This was a very classic Purdue-Indiana game, one that, it's what rivalries are all about. When it's, one team doesn't look like it's going to be uber competitive and you get a really good game out of it. That was a fun one to watch. But it seemed like IU carved up Purdue in the pick and roll and did a good job limiting Purdue in pick and roll action. Is that accurate? Yeah. You saw the stat that someone tweeted out. IU had like 1.4 points per possession when Trey Galloway was initiating the pick and roll. I think Purdue had to devote so much bandwidth to trying to not let Umar Ballo kill them that, that allowed Trey Galloway to have some angles off of the ball screen. Or when Purdue really packed the lane, it allowed Indiana to kick it out to Goody or to Mbako. And then it allowed Mbako to either dribble or shoot. Mbako took 17 shots. He was really good. He led the game with 25 points. He was terrific. He's an up and down guy, but you see the talent there in a game like that where he can do both of those. And when he gets going, he's dangerous. Goody, same deal. He can really shoot it. He goes 3 for 6 from deep. Indiana shot, 36.8% from 3. Indiana's probably taken that going into any game. It's not a very good 3-point shooting team, but, it got some really good looks, and things tend to happen when you get really good looks. Galloway hits one as well. His was wide open. I thought Purdue's pick and roll action was fine. It gave Braden Smith a bunch of good mid-range jumpers, and that's a good outcome if you're Purdue. All you can really do on offense is generate good shots. If they fall, they fall. If they don't, they don't. I mean, everyone has a different good shot based off what its team is. And for Purdue, getting Braden Smith a mid-range jumper is a good shot. You'll take it. Purdue did an all right job there. Of course, you'd love to get to the basket more for lay-ins or to get Trey Kaufman-Renn easier buckets or to get wide open threes when teams collapse, which Purdue got some good looks, just didn't go in. I thought Purdue's pick and roll action was fine. IU played one of its best games of the season. Does that say more about Indiana performing well or Purdue's defense struggling? As I said, Indiana came out ready to play. Indiana came out and gave a really good effort. I think that is important context to remember here. Indiana has good pieces. Mbako's a good player. He's up and down. He's super streaky, but he's a good player. Goody can really shoot it. Ballo's a lot to handle. Indiana also couldn't go big with Renew and Ballo playing together because Renew was in foul trouble all night. He only played 8 minutes. That was probably for the best for IU because I don't know that it works as well to have have those reversals from when Purdue doubles Ballo if Renew is out there as well. Those passes get tricky. Purdue can do a lot more too when IU is having both them on the floor defensively. It opens up things for Purdue to do. I thought for IU that was a blessing in disguise, that it had to go smaller, that it was able to spread the floor more. The rivalry clearly meant something to Indiana, which is kind of a compliment to Purdue because that game was fun. That Indiana played well. I think Purdue being in foul trouble was a big part of it, of course, with Trey Kaufman-Renn, but also Caleb First, leaving Purdue to have to play small. I don't think it was as much of some major concern. I think it was just a lot of things kind of coming together for Indiana, playing to its potential a little bit. This Indiana team has talent. Talent's not the issue. It's just putting it all together. And it hasn't been able to do so for whatever reasons. I don't really like diving into that because I never want to be perceived as the Purdue guy that just bashes on IU. But I also don't want to sit here and give IU all this praise in the world and, be complained about for that too. IU played well. IU did play one of its better games of the season. Something as well. Purdue doesn't shoot well. Purdue goes 2 for 13 from 3. And even if it just goes 5 for 13 and shoots a little bit more in line with its season average, there's 9 points. That's the difference here. Purdue misses 3 free throws early on from Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer. That's weird. Raleigh Burgess gets a technical for I still don't know what. There's 2 points for Indiana. You just kind of do these little things that add up. I don't know. Indiana played well. Indiana had every chance to win the game. However that final 30 seconds unfolded, neither team can feel bad about the effort it put out there. IU hasn't completely quit on Mike Woodson. There have been some games where it looks like it, but it hasn't quit yet. And Purdue got IU's best. And when we go down there, in 3 weeks, Purdue goes down there on a Sunday afternoon, who knows what you're going to get. Indiana could give Purdue another really good game. It might not be a good game. I don't know. Finally, in some games, Purdue looks to focus on kicking out for threes and running a pretty spread out offense where in some games, Purdue looks very focused on scoring around the basket. What goes into that? Obviously, a lot of it is Purdue reacting to how opposing teams defend ball screens. This has been the biggest shift in Purdue's program over the last 2 seasons, is that Purdue has gone very heavily to a ball screen offense where, last year it was Zach Edey. This year it's Trey Kaufman-Renn initiating a ball screen with Braden Smith and Purdue going from there. Now you still have some sets that Purdue runs to get guys in motion to generate open looks, but Purdue has predominantly run its offense through ball screens. And how they defend that determines what Purdue does. If they're going to play drop coverage, then Braden Smith is going to have a lot of mid-range looks, and that's a good shot. If they try to switch, then you're going to get the ball in Trey Kaufman-Renn's hands against a smaller defender. That's a good shot. Whatever he does in the post up there. Purdue uses some of that inverted ball screen stuff where Trey Kaufman-Renn has the ball at the free throw line and Braden Smith sets a little screen. That's been really effective. One of Trey Kaufman-Renn's 3 misses was on that at point blank range, and that was just a beautifully executed play because Umar Bala wasn't able to keep up with that. When teams hard hedge and really force the ball out of Braden Smith's hands, that's when you get some open looks because the defense is scrambling to make up for that. You're kind of playing 4-on-3 for a second there because the defense is devoting 2 guys to Braden Smith. That's where you get your threes sometimes. It all comes down to what's there. If teams crash on Trey Kaufman-Renn, then you see a lot of those threes open up. Like in that game against Nebraska, Nebraska was coming hard at Trey Kaufman-Renn when he caught the ball. He had 7 assists or 8 assists in that game, finding open guys from 3. It's really just about how the defense plays it. Purdue doesn't have guys that it's running a ton of action for on the perimeter. It certainly does for Fletcher Loyer, and you see him get good shots, but you also see him attacking closeouts a little bit. But you're not running stuff for Camden Heide. You're not running stuff for Miles Colvin. You're not running stuff for those freshman guards. Because if you're going to take the ball out of Braden Smith's hands, you better have a really good place for it to go. Fletcher Loyer, Trey Kaufman-Renn, those are really good places for it to go. When the ball winds up in guys' hands, Jakari Harris knocks down a 3. Miles Colvin had some good looks, as did Camden Heide. These looks are there for Purdue, but it doesn't have, a Sasha Stefanovic and Dakota Mathias where you're running all of this motion stuff around the baseline and running them in circles to try to get them open. I think Purdue just needs some to fall. I really do. It's what's there. Purdue still scores 81 points in this game. Purdue scored enough. Purdue has been scoring enough. It just kind of is what it is. It scores 91 against Michigan, 81. That Oregon game was a rock fight, but Purdue did enough to win. Turned it over a lot against Washington and found a way to win. So, a long-winded way of saying it comes down to what the defense does and how much Purdue really wants to look and how much Braden Smith wants to shoot threes. Because he hasn't had games with a ton of three-point attempts recently. At least it hasn't felt like it. And Purdue can shoot a lot more threes if Purdue just gets into that ball screen action and he lets it fly from 3. Purdue's also had, after the new year, it felt like they had some games where they were running stuff for Braden Smith as a shooter. You haven't seen that a ton in recent weeks. Maybe we'll see that come back. But that's all I've got for today. Thank you all for spending your time with me. We'll be back here probably next Sunday. We will talk about what Purdue does at Iowa, what Purdue does at home against USC. A couple of games Purdue really needs to win. Those are the games that win you the Big Ten, folks. Send over your questions for next week's show on Twitter at BoilersBeyond, and be sure to follow the show there. Send emails, boilersandbeyondpod@gmail.com, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. We will talk to you then. Enjoy the games and take care, guys.